Session with Dr. Farid Holakouee.
Good evening. Welcome to In Session. I'm your host, Dr. Farid Holakouee, and I'll be with you for the next hour here on Radio Hamra. We are still thinking of the people of Iran and wishing and hoping and really wanting a free Iran. And the news keeps coming out, and it's not pleasant to see more videos of families finding their loved ones in body bags and the footage of protesters and unarmed civilians being shot with military-grade weapons. And also, it's a very delayed in the ways that we see these things. I see footage now coming out of January 8th and January 9th because with the internet shut down, it's been hard to get things out to the public. And also because of that, media coverage is a bit delayed. I saw an article today from the Washington Post talking about some of the horrific things that have happened, including at the bazaar in Rasht, where there was just lots of deaths, and you hear different estimates, and it's hard to know the exact number. One, because there's the fog of essentially war when you think of how they're almost at war with their own citizens. And just the internet blackout on top of that has made it very hard to really know. So you hear these different numbers, and I think that sometimes that becomes the issue that people will dispute or fight about. Is it, from the beginning, anytime I've posted anything about the numbers, is it, 3,000? Is it 12,000? Is it 20,000? Of course, I don't know the exact number, but it does seem like many credible estimates would put it in the tens of thousands. Exactly how many is not clear, but that's really shocking. And again, this is unarmed citizens that are being killed. It's not something, wars these days sometimes will have casualties of this magnitude. We're talking about a country with the own citizens of that country. So it's very, very sad and heartbreaking. And it's been very heavy on people's hearts. And I'm seeing it, of course, myself personally, people that I know, and also in my practice, seeing clients who are all affected by what's going on and saddened by what they're seeing and feeling so many emotions. And I actually wanted to talk about that part, feeling these unpleasant feelings, and some thoughts more just from a psychological perspective or lens, because I think sometimes when people think of psychology or what the goal is or what we try to do, there's this thought where it's to make people happy. And I'd say that's, to an extent, it obviously includes that. Obviously, it's not to try to make people unhappy, but I think unfortunately that then gets turned into to not feel bad at all, to have no negative feelings or to erase all negative feelings, and to make that somehow a goal in general, or the goal of psychology, or what it's trying to create for people. And so sometimes when people think, do you have ways to just make these sad feelings go away? I've heard that a lot. How do we, either for themselves or someone they care about, how do you, is there a way you can make my daughter, my son, my whatever, not be sad or not depressed at all? And of course, therapy can treat mental illness and help people with depression to feel better over time, or to help them through that. But there isn't this way of just making sad feelings, bad feelings, or the ones we think are bad, to just go away. And that's not, to me, a goal, and that's not even realistic. So we have to realize that that's not possible. But I think some people think that it's possible. We wouldn't think the same thing about physical pain. I don't think anyone thinks it's possible to live a life where you never feel any physical pain, or you'd realize if that were the case, you have to completely numb yourself, which is kind of true psychologically as well, emotionally as well. But we kind of understand that. Now, we want to strive towards health, and the medical field can help with that. Especially preventative will be even better, but to treat pain when it arrives, or treat illness when it arrives. But no one would have this mindset or expectation of I want to live a completely pain-free life or a life where I'm never feeling any kind of symptoms of sickness or illness at all. It's just not realistic. Doesn't mean pain is good or doesn't mean we strive towards it, but it means that it's just real to accept that pain will be part of life, discomforts will be part of life. The thing with psychological pain and psychological things in general is that because it's less visible, someone has a cough, someone has a stuffy nose, if someone hurts their leg and it gets swollen, those things are visibly there, and we feel that is more real than emotional pain can feel fake, or even people say, "Oh, it's all in your head." So there's this notion that you can just shut it off or on or change it instantly, and we have this power to do that when that is not realistic. Can we impact our moods by our thoughts and what we do? Absolutely. So it's not black or white to say we have no impact on them, but this idea that it's just like these control volumes and levers that we can move up and down at will, that's not realistic and that's not possible. Sometimes people in the self-help guru influencer world will tell you that's possible, to have no bad days and to be in bliss all the time, but that's not possible. Maybe unless you take some drugs, but even then you come down from it. There's no perpetual high that you can have. And so rather than trying to create always happy people who never feel down, we have to accept that that's part of life, is to sometimes not feel good. And not only that, recognize that the unpleasant feelings, even sometimes I prefer that over bad feelings or negative emotions, because that already gives it a judgment on it to some degree. But unpleasant meaning that when you experience it, it doesn't feel good as we're feeling it. And the unpleasant emotions do have value, very important value. So even if you could, which you can't, get rid of them completely, that wouldn't be a sign of health or a sign of a good life. If you got rid of physical pain, that would not be a good thing either, because you need to be able to feel what is hurting your body, hurting you in some way to stay healthier. And similarly, you need to be in touch and be able to feel these unpleasant emotions to better understand yourself and actually strive towards a healthier life. So again, we have to take that. It's not possible, remove that. And so what we actually want to try to build, as counterintuitive as it might sound to some people, is the capacity to tolerate these unpleasant feelings, to actually be able to hold them and sit with them and understand them better. Because if we just try to get rid of it as soon as we feel it, you won't be able to actually get the information the feeling is telling you. So as soon as you felt pain in your body, if you started just taking some painkillers and tried to make the pain disappear, maybe the painkillers would work, but you wouldn't really know, well, what was hurting? Why was it hurting? What can I do about it? And similarly, if you don't realize what's making you sad or mad or envious or whatever, unpleasant feeling you're having, you won't get to better understand yourself and then to strive and move towards a healthier life. So it's important to acknowledge that, yes, these feelings might not feel good when I experience them, but it's not a cause for concern or emergency or something I have to get rid of instantly. Let me try to sit with the feeling and understand it first before I try to get rid of it, or even, decide what I want to do with it. Just like you get angry, rather than reacting with the anger, with aggression or violence or whatever it might be, you first try to understand, okay, first, what am I feeling? And then why am I feeling it? What's going on here? And then you can choose to act. This is the classic, creating a little bit of space between the stimulus and the reaction, and make it a stimulus, a pause, and some kind of response. And on top of just the response part is this understanding of what's going on for you. So to me, one of the classic or biggest markers of someone's mental health is how good are they at tolerating negative feelings, unpleasant feelings. I know I say it interchangeably myself. I'm trying not to. I can understand that negative comes out a lot. It's kind of how we think about it, but I really do want to focus on using unpleasant to reinforce this mindset that, yes, it doesn't feel good, but it's not something negative or something that we have to really be scared of or run away from in any kind of way. So, how good are we at tolerating those unpleasant feelings? Doesn't mean we want to feel these unpleasant feelings, doesn't mean we try to go towards them or try to make them come upon us. And there are people that can do that. So, I'm not saying someone who's feeling down is definitely doing everything right or it's a good thing. Sometimes people prefer to stay in a down mood. That's their comfort zone. And they could choose at some level to be there more than they might need to or more than might be helpful for them. But to me, you're not mentally healthy if you can't handle being down and feeling sad or upset. And can you sit with that for yourself? And I'll get to how that allows you to sit there with other people's unpleasant feelings, and you have to have that to make that happen. But first, just talking about ourselves, we need to be able to feel sad sometimes. And so, even to be a good citizen, if we're looking at what's happening in the world, if you are someone who says, I don't want to feel sad, and then you're seeing the news coming out of Iran, it puts you in a tough spot because you have to either avoid the news completely and not see any of it. So you are choosing to be ignorant over choosing to be informed and possibly saddened by it. Or you'll choose to somehow, justify it as okay, or it's good, or, something, and maybe, sugar coated or find some simplified silver lining. Oh, well, this is going to lead to something good. So it's okay. This is not sad that people are being killed, that, these videos of families looking for their, teenage children in body bags and trying to find them amidst a sea of hundreds of them in a hospital or some setting. Maybe it's not that bad because this is going to end up good. These are just things we say to ourselves to fool ourselves to prevent that feeling bad that is inevitable if we allow ourselves to actually connect to what we are witnessing, which is just tragic. These are horrific things that are happening, and there's no way to take that away. When something is tragic, we have to acknowledge the tragedy. But if you can't tolerate feeling bad and you feel overwhelmed by those feelings, then you're going to find some way away from it. So to even be a good citizen of the world and to be a helpful person, we have to allow ourselves to be impacted by what's going on. So if we want to always be happy and not smile, we will choose not to look at what is happening. And so I hope we will give ourselves the space to feel down when it comes to what we're seeing there. Like all things, there's a balance. I'm not suggesting that you let yourself spiral into a very, very dark place where you might be, hurting yourself in some way. And if you have responsibility to other people, not being able to be there for them. At the same time, I think being deeply impacted by it is a healthy response. It is very, very sad to see these things. And so if I ever am talking about support in some way and coping with it, there are things we can do, but I never want to suggest that the goal is to be able to see these horrific things and not be saddened, not be upset or angered by what we are seeing. That is the healthy response. If someone tells me they can see a video of something horrific and feel nothing, that's not strength. That's not health. I think sometimes people think that, oh, this person is crying or this person is sad and this person is not sad. The not sad person must be the healthier and stronger one. But if you're seeing something that's tragic and not affected by it, that's not a sign of strength or health at all. So we have to allow ourselves to feel down and feel sad. It obviously doesn't feel good. That's why we go away from it. It's an unpleasant emotion. And when we feel something unpleasant, there's a desire to get back to homeostasis, to get rid of that bad feeling and to go to somewhere at least neutral, if not good. And so we feel a strong urge to do that. And we feel that when other people are not feeling good, to try to help them get away from that. And so in the show, I'll continue on this theme, definitely personally, but then also interpersonally, and how our inability or our intolerance for these unpleasant emotions can interfere with our relationships, interfere with the ways that we can be there to emotionally support and care for one another, and essentially limits the amount of empathy we can feel and then express to loved ones or whoever we might be interacting with. So let's go to our first commercial break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. On today's show, I am discussing how what the situation in Iran is understandably been very sad and painful for all of us to watch around the world, and how we, of course, don't feel good in that unpleasant emotion of sadness and pain. We don't want to run away from it. But to begin with, if we want to be there for the people in Iran, we have to keep facing what's happening. I mean, obviously, it's so small to even mention compared to what they're going through there. So that could be good to keep in mind having that perspective. But if we want to be there for them and to continue to be there for them, we have to keep looking into what is happening there, looking at what's happening there, as painful as that is, and as saddening as that is. And it's good if it feels sad for us to see what's happening there. That's a healthy response, not an unhealthy one. And I was starting there, talking about just in general, this tolerance for unpleasant feelings, sometimes even called frustration tolerance, how it is one of the biggest markers of mental health. And why might that be so? Why is it actually a good thing to be able to feel bad? Or as I say, how good are you at feeling bad or feeling those bad emotions? Is that if you are not able to tolerate those unpleasant feelings, you're going to get yourself into a lot of trouble in different ways. So to begin with, life inevitably will make us feel unpleasant things sometimes. That's just how life has to be. There's no way around that. And so we have to be prepared that experience or those experiences will show up. And what's important is not if you're going to feel bad, it's what will you do when you feel bad. And if you can't tolerate those unpleasant emotions, what you're going to do is likely unhealthy coping or responses to those emotions. So that could include one, trying to deny them altogether, disconnect from your emotions. That's hurtful in many ways. One, you won't get that information from those unpleasant feelings, but especially it's hurtful because we can't just numb ourselves to the bad feelings, the ones that are unpleasant. What we usually will tend to do in this case is you disconnect from your emotions altogether, or you're not going to be very connected to yourself. So you're just less connected, less mindful of yourself and your experience. And that's obviously not going to lead to a good life. You're not really aware and self-aware of who you are, which will interfere with relationships and just your overall life experience. Also, if you are avoiding unpleasant feelings, you're likely going to avoid conflict and uncomfortable conversations. So your relationships will suffer as a result because you won't be open to going to those unpleasant places where the growth happens in a relationship, where the repair happens. And if you don't do that cleanup and repair, it's kind of like if a city doesn't do trash and cleaning, the debris will start to build up on the roads, and the roads of connection will break down. Similarly, in a relationship, if you don't clear out the debris and trash over time, which inevitably will build up in any relationship or comes up in any relationship, then what will happen is those ways that you emotionally connect and communicate will start to break down. So the relationship can't be as strong as it can be, as connected as it can be, if you are avoiding conflict, which is going to be a consequence if you're trying to avoid unpleasant emotions. And also, very importantly, if you avoid unpleasant feelings, you are likely to cope, I was mentioning avoidance, but in other unhealthy ways because you feel bad. And the feeling will be like, okay, this doesn't feel good. I have to get away from this feeling as fast as possible. And unfortunately, coping mechanisms that act very quickly tend to be the more unhealthy ones, like taking some kind of substance or drug, drug, alcohol, something that we take, or some compulsive behavior that might give us some excitement to get us away from that, or we engage in some kind of behavior that might have negative consequences, from spending to sex or something that we might not think through. Doesn't mean those things are bad, but we might do them in unhealthy ways as a reaction to feeling bad. And those things will hurt us. So the problem with thinking that unpleasant feelings are so intolerable is that it makes you take bad actions when those feelings inevitably will come up in your life, because they're going to be there. There's just, again, no way to avoid that. And so that's what we see, is that people who have a hard time tolerating their negative feelings, those unpleasant feelings, will just quickly look for some quick fix that gets them out of it. And in general, even medications or drugs, the faster they act, that sounds like a good thing, but the faster they act, the more addictive and habit forming they usually are. So even in psychological or psychiatric medications, antidepressants act fairly slowly, which can be very frustrating. That it really is a challenge for people who are taking antidepressants, that we often observe that the side effects may begin immediately, but the positive effects might take a few weeks to kick in, which is really tough, especially if you're feeling very down or depressed. Anti-anxiety medications, on the other hand, work within minutes. Maybe, I don't know exactly how many, 15 or 20 minutes, maybe less. I don't know exactly, but I know it is fairly quick. And this is pleasant in the moment and can feel very good, but unfortunately makes it so that anti-anxiety medications can be very habit forming and very addictive. And that can be really difficult, because if you do get addicted to them, they can be very hard to quit, and even can be deadly if you quit after being very addicted to a high amount or high dosage. Cold turkey can be actually dangerous. So the fast acting part of it obviously feels good in the moment, but creates problems down the line. And so actually, when people have anxiety, even though you would think anti-anxiety medication by name would be the right medication for them, usually if a medication is prescribed, it's an antidepressant, which can help with anxiety, but in a more slower way, less chance of habit forming or addiction in that case, which could be obviously a better thing. And this is kind of true of our coping mechanisms, that if you look at the ones that are more fast to act, taking some kind of substance or complete denial or avoidance, if you could do that, those ones tend to act faster, but they're more unhealthy, more likely to lead to addiction and all of that. Things that are slower, like talking to a friend, going for a walk, or working out, just sitting with the feeling, those will not make the feeling go away as quick, but they are healthier choices, healthier habits for you. So if you talk to a friend, it won't make you feel as good as fast as, let's say taking some substance that might within a couple of minutes make you feel very good, or at least numb, or something much better than what you were feeling before. But talking to a friend doesn't have these negative side effects, and not something that you're even worried about becoming habit forming or getting addicted to. It has a lot of positives that you will get to experience as a result. So that's something to keep in mind, because it's a tough one. If you're feeling discomfort, if you're feeling some kind of pain, unpleasant emotion, you want to feel as good as you can, as fast as you can. There's an understandable desire, but we have to recognize that although it's understandable to want that, there's a lot of risk involved when we turn towards those choices that are very fast that make us feel better much more quickly. So something to keep in mind in general. And quick fixes, are what people are looking for with everything, unpleasant feelings, but also just life challenges, issues, relationship issues. I don't want to have a lot of uncomfortable conversations with my husband or wife. What's like a 2-minute hack that might fix our relationship? People are looking for that. And again, understandably, it's easier, expends less energy, less discomfort, but almost always quick fixes might give you some type of quick result, but it's usually, that's also short-lived. It's a quick reaction back in most cases. Slower burns tend to lead to longer lasting results. Think if you wanted to get healthy, if someone says, hey, take these pills, or, do this type of whatever crazy kind of thing, and you'll get in shape better, it usually means it's coming with some negative side effects, or the results go away quickly. But if you work out and eat better for a long period of time, the results come more slowly, but are more long lasting, and don't come with the negative side effects or negative consequences of those more immediate types of changes that people might look for. And so first, we have to recognize this for ourselves, that to be psychologically healthy and to live a good life and have good relationships, I have to be able to tolerate uncomfortable, unpleasant feelings. And first, just understanding where do you lie on the spectrum. It might be hard to know because you can't really, it's not like your height where you can like measure yourself or see yourself compared to other people. You really might not know what are other people experiencing, what they go through, but you might get a sense based on people that are around you, or you can talk to people you know or who are close to you. But to try to get a sense of how good am I at tolerating unpleasant feelings. It can be good to reflect on your family because we are very heavily influenced by the family that we grew up in, the home we grew up in, and how were these unpleasant feelings tolerated or dealt with in our family. Most families don't have good experiences or good culture of dealing with unpleasant feelings because there is a general consensus that these are bad and we have to get rid of them or we don't want them. Or as parents, maybe don't talk about them because your kids might feel them, or don't show them ever because they won't be able to handle it and all these things. So in most families, unpleasant feelings are not something that are dealt with in healthy ways, and the kids internalize these lessons and learn that it's not a good thing. And it's also shown in how parents respond when their kids feel these things. So if your parents freaked out if you were crying, or they got really sad when you were crying, or made you feel like they were upset that you were sad or crying, or that you shouldn't feel sad, you're being, sometimes you hear things like, oh, you're being ungrateful, or you should just be happy, or, oh, I'm just going to distract you with a toy, or let me take you out for ice cream, or let me give you something. All these are giving the message that unpleasant feelings are bad, or something to run away from, or something that other people won't like, so you shouldn't have them. All very, very unfortunate things that we can teach our kids, and maybe you can understand, did I get these lessons myself? Because you definitely will have some default that you are at right now of how you tolerate unpleasant feelings. And it's not also something you need, like a light switch change, and I can give you some magic technique that now you'll be able to tolerate them. But you can build up your endurance like anything. You can, maybe at first you try to run, and you could run for like 2 minutes and not go very far. And it doesn't mean the next day you can run a marathon, but you can build it up. The next day, maybe 2 minutes and a few seconds, and you keep working. And over time, that increases. We can also do this with our unpleasant feelings, that you can recognize the value in experiencing them, the value of learning from them, understanding them, the value of not avoiding them, because sometimes going into them in a relationship, for example, can be healthy, or even in your own life. If you avoid unpleasant feelings, then you might not make the call you need to make, or reach out to someone, or face potential rejection, or a whole bunch of things. If we make our goal not to feel unpleasant things, you're going to live an unfulfilled life, because you'll miss out on so many things that, one, might include unpleasant feelings, and then two, things that you might risk feeling an unpleasant feeling, so you'll avoid something that is good for you. So if you recognize this, you can try to practice, being more mindful, even sitting with the feelings a little bit more. You can even explore past feelings that are unpleasant. Think of some memories, or think of some things, not to dwell on the past, but just to try to recognize, like, how do I respond to when I'm feeling bad? What do I start to feel about the feeling? Sometimes there's almost a panic, which, as you can see with parents, where they're freaking out that their kid is crying, and think that the only thing that matters at any age is to just make them stop crying no matter what, and they're freaking out. So how do you feel if you cry or you get sad? Is it tolerable? Is it something you can be okay with? Also, what judgments might come up? For some people, they're crying, they think they're weak, or they should be embarrassed, or they are someone that no one wants to be around. They become unlovable. Lots of things can come up, and so we can try to understand, what are my own judgments about different, overall feeling unpleasant feelings, but also different ones. Sometimes anger is a good one, but sadness is a bad one. I feel good when I'm angry and I like it. When I'm sad, I feel weak and maybe as a man, even not masculine or something like that. And, I don't want that. So that can also help us better understand our relationship with unpleasant feelings. And yes, then we can try to increase our endurance, our tolerance of how to handle those emotions and to sit with them. Because the important thing is, we also want to teach this lesson to our children. Not that we want them to be sad, of course, that's not at all the case, but understanding again that this is part of life, that my child will inevitably feel sad, feel mad, all these things some of the time. How do I help them to better relate and deal with those feelings rather than try to get them to disappear and never exist? Because that doesn't happen. Sometimes parents are like, oh, I give my kid everything they need. Why would they be upset? Of course, if you don't have things you need, that will make you sad or upset or hurt in a lot of ways. But that doesn't mean that if you get what you need, nothing will make you upset. Most of you, even saying that or thinking that for your kids, you probably live a good life and have what you need, but you still get upset or sad by the world and your life at times. So we want to help our kids recognize that this is inevitable part of life. Doesn't mean life is bad, but that life will include at times feeling bad, and that's okay. The feelings don't last forever, whatever the feeling is. That's an important thing to recognize. The feelings are not scary. Yes, it might not feel good, but you're okay. If you're sad, I'll be here with you if you need me to support you through it. But I have faith that you're going to feel better soon. And I know you will feel better at some point, but I'll be with you as long as you need that. And so if parents could actually approach their children's negative or unpleasant feelings with a sense of calm. Sometimes in psychology, we use words like a container, like you can hold on to their feelings rather than it starts to make you shatter and break and then you can't hold them. But I can hold this for you and with you, not just I'm going to take it from you, but I can sit with you and create this kind of cushion or buffering that you can handle holding on to it yourself too, and show you that, yeah, this doesn't feel good, but you're going to be okay. Much better than, okay, you're sad, let me make you happy. Or no, you shouldn't be sad about this. Or you have to feel this way now. Or let's go play your favorite game right now. Or let me go take you out to eat something or give you some candy or whatever it might be. What you just start to associate is that these unpleasant feelings are intolerable and scary. And as soon as you feel them, just do whatever you want and can to make yourself feel good. Really, really bad and unhealthy message to send to your children. So first, we have to have the tolerance yourself, because if you don't have the tolerance yourself, you won't be able to tolerate it in someone else. Because if you see your child being sad, it's going to make you feel sad and feel those things. So if you can't tolerate it, you will then pass that on to your kids because they'll see it and feel that you can't tolerate it, and it's going to make you react. And then they might react in similar ways. Often what they learn is to just hide those feelings from their parents. Oh, mommy and daddy didn't like it when I cried, so let me not cry anymore. Or they don't like it if I get mad or upset about something, so I can't ever get that way, or I have to hide that from them. And they also learn that they to judge those emotions. Oh, I'm those feelings are bad, and I'm bad because I feel that way sometimes, because inevitably they will feel that way. And so all of this, my parents will say, well, does that mean I want my kids to be sad or I can handle it? Of course not. No one would say that. But the analogy I use is that if your child had a cold, you don't, would you want them to tell you they have a cold, or would you want them to try to hide it from you? Okay, I'm not going to cough in front of my mom or dad. If I do have to cough, I'll go in the bathroom and flush the toilet and cough, and I'll try to act like I'm not sick until I get better. And I think, any parent would be like, no, of course not. I don't want my kid to hide that they have a cold from me. I want them to tell me so I know, and also so I can try to help support them through that. And to me, it's a very similar thing. It's not that you want your kid to be sad, but if they are sad, I think you would like to know. And most people would say that, but that means you have to give them that space that you can handle it, to be there for them when they're feeling sad, and show them that it's okay. I can be there with you, and I'll help support you. And similarly, just like if your child has a cold, you're not going to try to shoot them up with a bunch of drugs or painkillers, or suck all the badness out of them in some way. You'll make them some soup, give them some vitamin C or things or whatever, maybe some medicine or whatever, to help them get better over time, knowing it will take some time, likely even a few days. And so similarly, if they're emotionally feeling bad and unpleasant things, you want to recognize that I want to help you, but not by just instantly making you feel better. I'll help you slowly get back to health, or a healthy place, or a place that feels better, but won't rush you through it or think that it has to be some kind of a quick fix. So I think a lot of times parents think their job is to make their kids happy, meaning they're smiling and joyful all the time. And of course, you want to give them what they need to experience joy and have fun and all of that. That should be a big part of what they get to experience. But at the same time, you will want to allow them to feel all the feelings, which will inevitably come up, and to have a good relationship with those feelings, and to recognize that they don't have to run away from them. They don't have to rush away from them or do unhealthy things to just make those kinds of feelings disappear. In the last segment, I'll talk a bit more about empathy, but also in the context of a romantic relationship when a couple tries to talk about things that can feel unpleasant. So let's go to our last commercial break. We'll be right back. Back. Tonight, so I've been talking about tolerating unpleasant feelings and how that is a big marker and indicator of overall mental health, and that if we can't tolerate negative, unpleasant feelings, we can't live a fulfilled life or as fulfilled of a life as we possibly could. And our relationships will also suffer. That's part of that unfulfilled life I'm talking about. And it's not, again, the sense of wanting to feel bad or the desire to feel bad, but it's that recognizing that feeling unpleasant feelings are a part of any life. And we have to accept them and learn to tolerate them and how to work with them rather than try to make them disappear or become invisible. And this last segment, I wanted to talk about it specifically in the context of romantic relationships. I've touched on a bit about, clearing the debris that is in any relationship when it builds up. Because yes, if you want to have a good, healthy relationship, we have to be able to have the unpleasant conversations, the uncomfortable conversations. And this is very easy to say here, have the conversation about conversations, but very hard to do in real life. So I've definitely avoided my share of unpleasant conversations as well. Don't want to make it seem like it's something easy, which is why we need repeated reminders of it because of how hard that can be. So to have that good relationship, we have to have these moments where something's bothering us, upsetting us, or we notice something in our partner that might mean that they're not feeling good. And we have to make the choice to have the uncomfortable conversation, even though avoiding it would feel better in the moment. You're just watching TV, cuddling, and having a nice night, and there's just something on your mind that's upsetting you or bothering you, or you've noticed something about your partner and you're concerned, or you want to check in to see how they're feeling, even though if you ask, it could open up a whole can of worms and you don't know where it's going to go. So we have to be open to having these conversations. If not, your relationship will stay okay on the surface, but underneath, the plumbing and everything going on will be just waiting to burst and to cause all sorts of problems. So it might look fine on the surface, but underneath trouble will be brewing. And we have to embrace those unpleasant talks, even if we don't like them. And the analogy that has come to my head, because I was talking about as a parent with your children and how you have to be able to tolerate unpleasant feelings to be able to tolerate their unpleasant feelings, or you have to be able to tolerate your own unpleasant feelings to be able to be there for them, and have that empathy to extend to them, to support them. And in a romantic relationship, of course, the dynamic is equal. It's not a parent-child where there's a clear differential there that needs to exist. The parent takes care of the kid is not taking care of the parents. That should not be how things go. The support goes really one way, especially when the children are young. You have adult children, still it's more that direction, but there could be a little bit more mutuality. But especially when the child is young, there shouldn't be a two-way street. Whereas in a romantic relationship, it should be two ways. There should be support that goes both ways. And like any characteristic, two members of a couple might or likely will have different degrees of tolerance of unpleasant feelings. And, like anything, the more matched you are, the better. But so if there is this difference, one partner might be able to tolerate unpleasant feelings and go there and, sit with their own and be there for someone else. And the other person might not have that tolerance. And this could create different types of conflicts or disconnects there because let's say partner A, who can tolerate the unpleasant feelings more, is not feeling good and wants to share that with their partner. And partner B might either try to avoid the conversation or quickly make it positive in some way, or make them even feel bad for bringing it up. Oh, I can't believe you're bringing this up. I'm having a bad day. I don't want to talk about something like this. They will not have the capacity to handle that conversation, or at least feel like they can. I don't want to say they won't have that capacity, but will express that lack of capacity. Be like, I don't want to talk about this thing that's bothering you or upsetting you because it doesn't feel good. And so they'll feel kind of stuck. Partner A, especially, will feel stuck that I'd like to talk about these things. I'm upset about something, or we had this fight. I want us to talk about it now and work on it. But partner B might constantly avoid those types of conversations and interactions. And this will lead to the relationship getting less close, one, and also getting more unhealthy because of the buildup of these things. I was using the analogy of like the streets of a city, and if you don't clean them up, then the roads get blocked. So the roads of communication or connection get blocked. Another way of thinking about it is like there's almost like a wire connecting us. That's like this passion or intensity or the love that's between two people. And so if it's just this clean wire, it's very strong and buzzing and has a lot of electricity. But if the debris builds up, there's less of that intensity, passion, and love between the two people. And in most relationships, this is what happens over time. Initially, there is this intensity and passion that is there. And of course, we can't expect that same passion of first meeting 40 years later. You can still be in love 40 years later, but not that initial spark. But still, there could be this very strong connection that's intense. But what happens is with unresolved fights that come up and disagreements that come up, with distance that starts to accumulate because we're not sharing or opening up or discussing some things that might be unpleasant or don't feel so good. And for a host of these kinds of reasons of not clearing up what is interfering with that connection, this weighs down on this wire. And so the intensity can get less, the love feels less, the connection feels less, and even to the point where it could go completely dull or even break. And there's virtually no longer a connection or love or warmth that is there. And it's not to say, oh, this is so easy, just have these talks and for sure that will never happen. But a big part of it is this avoidance of dealing with things. Yeah, I can't tell you the number of times I work with a couple and they say, oh yeah, we have had this fight 2 weeks ago, but we haven't talked about it since until we've talked about it now today in the session, even though it was a really bad fight. And sometimes there's a sense of, oh, we're going to have therapy so we don't have to bring it up, which I don't like. I get that it could be more having it in this more even controlled or supported, I could say is a better word, environment is good, but we don't want to avoid having conversations because we can have them, at some point with a professional, you can still have them yourselves, and you need to have the conversations you can have are more than just the ones you'll be able to have in a therapy session, even if you have it once a week. But many people will just completely avoid talking about a bad fight. And you can get it. It doesn't feel good. Obviously, the experience was unpleasant, so we don't want to go back to it. Oftentimes, we feel guilty or bad about something we said, or maybe something our partner said that now is sitting with us, and we don't want to even bring it up again or revisit that. So we try to avoid it or ignore it. And I think this is one of the most common patterns of conflict resolution I see is no conflict resolution. The conflict happens, the fight somehow ends with both people storming out or walking away from each other or whatever. Somehow it ends, or they just go to sleep, and that's it. They try to go back to normal the next day. But things aren't normal. There's still that conflict between you that either you could resolve or let it just weigh on the relationship. And that's unfortunately what often happens. But I thought of an analogy recently that reflects this experience where one partner is able to tolerate the unpleasant feelings more than the other. And it's as if, I do have this analogy of vulnerability signs. It's like you're going underwater. And the reason why I like that is that it could feel very tough, very intolerable. And even the sense of I want to rush back to the surface. So going down there into the sadness, into the darkness doesn't feel good. I want to quickly swim up and put my head above water. And so it's kind of like when one person has more tolerance for, let's say, sadness than their partner does, it's like they have the ability to hold their breath underwater longer than their partner. So maybe the partner never just goes under the water with them. But another way of looking at it is, okay, they both put their head underwater and now they're, communicating in the darkness about this sadness that is there. But partner B quickly wants to come back to the surface sooner than partner A is ready to do. Or they're still feeling sad, they're still feeling down and still in this vulnerable space. But partner B can't tolerate it, so they swim up. So it's this difference in their tolerance that makes it that they can't stay underwater together for as long. And so partner A will feel very unsatisfied because partner B either swims up to the surface or often tries to pull them back up to the surface too with them to be like, okay, no, let's not go down there. And what most people want when they're feeling sad or feeling down is for their partner to meet them at the darkness. So that's what most of us want. You go through a really painful loss. You don't want someone to just cheer you up. You want someone to actually enter the cave with you and sit next to you in the darkness rather than just pull you out of there or pretend like it's not there or ignore you and think, okay, you just want to be by yourself in the cave. Sometimes people want some space. Sometimes they want that as a way of coping or dealing with things. But very often people just want you to be by their side, even if you're not, feeling like you're helping in some significant way. You're helping in the ways that matter, which is just having that presence and that support, which, like I was saying before, when someone has a cold, they don't instantly feel better, but when you give them support, it'll make small improvements that over time will help them get back to a better place. So you might recognize this in your relationship. You might be one or the other person who can tolerate those feelings more or is more comfortable going into the sadness or the uncomfortable conversation. And you think your partner is quickly trying to go back to something good or something happy or light or jokes about what's happening rather than really going into the darkness with you, or gets mad at you for bringing up something sad or an unpleasant conversation because they can't tolerate it. And so you just feel like you have this differential, how long you can hold your breath underwater. And it's affecting how long you can genuinely get into things and connect and communicate about the unpleasant feelings. And this can be very problematic. So just some thoughts on that and something to keep in mind, and tying it into how I started the show today with what's happening in Iran. It's unfortunate. I wish it wasn't the case, but yes, we can have hope, and we want to be hopeful and to have support for the people of Iran. Absolutely, we need to hold on to that. And at the same time, it is just a very sad thing to see the images and the videos that we're seeing of what's happening and reading the stories that are happening there. That is also the case. And so we have to be able to tolerate feeling sad or feeling these unpleasant things if we want to stay connected to what's happening in Iran and to continue to support our brothers and sisters who are there. All right, that brings us to the end of tonight's episode. Thank you to Farid in the studio. You've been listening to In Session with Dr. Farid Holakouee. Zan Zendegi Azadi.